Ever get that itch, to just say screw it and do something totally wild? Like imagine you're Tazio Nuvolari, right? One of the best race car drivers to ever live. You're about to hit the Avusrennen, this insane race, all speed, all danger, and you're strapped in, ready to go, with a cast on your leg. I mean, seriously, could you even...
Most people would call it crazy, straight up.
Yeah.
But Nuvolari, this was practically a Tuesday for him. This wasn't some PR stunt. His entire life, his whole career, it was all about pushing the limits, doing the unthinkable.
Exactly. We aren't just skimming the surface here. No way. We're going deep. And our guide, Pilote de Legend, this incredible French piece, is like a love letter to taking risks, And it gets into the nitty-gritty of Nuvolari, the kind of stories that make you wonder, was this guy even human?
Let's find out, shall we?
So, Nuvolari's story, it's not some rags to riches thing. This guy was practically born for competition. His own uncle, a champion cyclist, multiple titles. Makes you think, maybe young Tazio saw that and thought, hold my sippy cup, I can top that.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Think about it. We're talking about the very beginning of motorsports. Dirt tracks, open roads, more guts than gears, half the time. His family, the environment, it all just screams need for speed right from the get-go.
And how... This is a good one. 13 years old, swipes his dad's car. Not for a little joyride around the block either. This kid takes it out at night. I mean, come on. This guy was wired differently, don't you think?
It shows you something about his personality, the need to test the limits. And back then, driving, it was a whole different animal, way riskier. It wasn't just a Sunday cruise, that's for sure.
Speaking of risky, let's talk World War I. Nuvolari's driving for the army, crashes pretty badly too. You'd think, all right, time to chill, maybe find a safer hobby, right? But not this guy.
In fact, you're not going to believe this. He's told to give up driving entirely. Talk about irony, huh?
Right, worst advice ever. But seriously, what was it about driving? Was he just stubborn? Or was it something more like this belief that he was invincible behind the wheel or something?
It's that unshakable self-belief, that confidence that really made him who he was. Most people, after a crash, they'd hesitate, play it safe. Not Nuvolari. He saw it as a challenge, a chance to prove everybody wrong.
And prove them wrong, he did. Jumps into motorcycle racing, racking up win after win, and then he switches to cars. Which brings us to, oh, this is juicy Enzo Ferrari, but remember, this is way before Ferrari was, Ferrari.
Exactly. This is Enzo just starting out, building his name. And get this, he dismisses Nuvolari because of his height. Can you imagine being that sure of yourself to dismiss someone who'd become a legend?
Talk about judging a book by its cover.
Yeah.
But this just made Nuvolari even more determined, I think. He wanted to prove Ferrari wrong, to show him that skill and guts matter more than how tall you are.
In those early races, brutal. It wasn't just about speed. It was endurance, mechanical know-how, just pure grit to get across that finish line. A whole different game.
And nobody played it quite like Nuvolari. Take the 1930 Miglia, for example. He's the first to average over 100 kilometers per hour. 100. Can you imagine the focus, the guts it took back then? This guy, after that win, he skyrockets, right? He's not just Tazio Nuvolari anymore. He's Il Mantovano Volante, the Flying Mantuan. Can you imagine having a nickname like that? Talk about pressure.
It's more than a nickname, though, isn't it? It's like he captured something about the Italian spirit. The 1930s, they were craving heroes, and here he was, this fearless guy dominating this sport that was becoming a national obsession.
And it wasn't just the fans, right? Poets, artists, even politicians, they were all caught up in the Nuvolari craze. Like Gabriele D'Annunzio, this famous poet, he gives Nuvolari a gift. A tortoise charm, of all things. What's that about?
You got to think about it, right? The tortoise, slow and steady, but D'Annunzio, he turns it into this symbol of speed, of perseverance. It's perfect for Nuvolari calculated risks, laser focus, outlasting everyone else.
It's kind of like a metaphor for his driving, yeah. He wasn't just going all out every second. He was smart about it, picking his moments to unleash that speed.
Exactly. He understood it wasn't just about being fast, but knowing when to be fast. But that balance, it was about to get tested like never before. Remember those German teams?
Oh, yeah. The new guys with all the money and the fancy engineering. Must have been a bit of a shock for the Italian fans, seeing them roll in.
It was a clash of styles almost. The Italian flair, the individual brilliance of a Nuvolari versus the Germans, all about efficiency, cold calculation. And for a while there, it looked like horsepower and technology were going to win out. But then, 1935, the Nürburgring.
This is it, right? This is where the legend really takes off. Set the scene for us. What was it like?
Picture this. Pouring rain, the Nürburgring, one of the most dangerous tracks in the world. And Nuvolari in his Alfa Romeo up against the giants. Mercedes, Auto Union. These weren't just cars, they were technological marvels, way ahead of anything Nuvolari had.
The classic underdog story. It's like David and Goliath, except with a lot more horsepower. You can practically feel the tension.
Right? And the rain, it just adds to the drama, doesn't it? Levels the playing field a bit. And Nuvolari, he loved those conditions. He could handle it, trusted his instincts, knew that track like the back of his hand.
So it wasn't just about speed anymore, but about outsmarting them, using his head, his willpower.
Exactly. A masterclass in tactical driving. He knew he couldn't beat them on pure power, so he used it against them. And in the end, he wins. Against all odds.
And it wasn't just a win for Nuvolari, was it? It was like a win for the little guy, a win for Italy. This is what makes him a national hero, you know?
He showed the world that day that a skilled driver in the right car could still beat the odds, even against the best technology. But life has a way of testing us, doesn't it? Even legends like Nuvolari. Just a couple years after this incredible win, tragedy strikes.
His son, Giorgio. It's a reminder that even the greats, they aren't invincible, are they? And as if that wasn't enough, that same year, 1938, Nuvolari has this horrific crash. His car goes up in flames.
Can't even imagine what that must have been like, the physical and emotional toll. You could hardly blame him for walking away then and there.
But he doesn't, does he? He was something else. This is what I mean about his spirit. He takes some time, of course. But eventually he comes back, and get this, he signs with Auto Union.
The guys who were his biggest rivals just a few years before. Now that's a twist. Shows you something about him, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You'd be able to channel that grief, that determination. Incredible.
And he wasn't coming back just to show up, was he? He wanted to prove to everyone, maybe to himself too, that he could still hang with the best.
Absolutely. And he did, even as he got older, even with new drivers coming up. But there's this one story, this race, that sums up Nuvolari after the war, the 1948 Coppa Brezzi.
Oh, yeah. This is the one with the steering wheel, right? I still can't believe that one.
It's like something out of a movie, isn't it? So he's in the lead, pushing hard, like always. And then the steering wheel comes off in his hand.
No way. What'd he do?
Most guys would have panicked, right? Called it a day. Not Nuvolari. He somehow, and I still don't know how, manages to control the car with just the steering column, wrestles that thing around the track.
This wasn't skill anymore. This was like pure willpower or something. He was defying physics.
And get this, he almost won. Can you imagine being the other drivers, seeing this guy in a broken car just blowing past you?
Legendary. He was larger than life, wasn't he? But even legends, they can't outrun time forever. Right?
And no, they can't. And his last races were coming up. That 1948 Miglia, a race that was already won for the books, that became his final chapter. He wasn't in great shape, his body was starting to give out, but that competitive fire, still burning strong.
This wasn't just another race for him, was it? It was like he had something to prove one last time.
Exactly. He wanted to show everyone he could still go up against the best, defy the odds, and that Miglia, it was brutal. Pushed everyone to the limit. And during practice, his car breaks down. Can you imagine how deflating that must have been?
Most people would have packed it in right there, said that's it, but not Nuvolari.
Nope. He borrows a Ferrari, a 166S no less, just hops into a car he's never driven before and says, let's race.
That's not brave, that's insane. But that was Nuvolari. Always pushing, always had to see how far he could go.
And for a while there, it looked like he might pull it off. He was leading the race, beating the younger drivers, beating the odds. But then, of course, the heavens opened up, torrential downpour. It was like something out of a Greek myth.
The ultimate challenge, right? Man versus nature, man versus machine. You can just picture him white-knuckling that Ferrari, giving it everything he had.
And he did. Pushed that car until it finally gave out. A broken spring. That's all it took to end his race. Talk about a heartbreaker.
A tough way to end things, no doubt.
Yeah.
But even in defeat, he showed what he was all about. More than winning or losing, you know?
Exactly. And nobody said it better than Ferdinand Porsche. This is a guy who knew a thing or two about racing himself, and he called Nuvolari the greatest driver of the past, present, and future.
That says it all, doesn't it? He was one of a kind, not just fast, but fearless, not just skilled, but a real strategist. More than just a driver, he was like an artist out there on the track.
What's the one thing that really sticks with you about Nuvolari?
I think it's that spirit he had. Nothing could stop him. Whether it was a busted engine or losing his son, he never backed down, never compromised. He raced with everything he had right to the very end. And that's something we can all learn from, isn't it? For sure. It's not always about winning the race. Sometimes it's about having the guts to keep going even when everything falls apart around you. And that's Nuvolari in a nutshell. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. Until next time.